So here's an interesting thing. Today is also Name Your Car Day, never mind kids' music. But we thought we'd explore something a little bit different and find out why or how car companies actually come up with the names for their cars. Why is a VW called a Polo or a Jetta or something else? Why is a Nissan called a Juke? Why is a Hyundai called a Tucson? Just a couple of examples. There's really interesting stuff behind that. And here's a man who knows something about it. Graham Eagle is a motoring expert in engineering, marketing and product planning. Graham, welcome and thanks for joining us on 702.
Good afternoon, John. It's a pleasure to be with you.
How does this all work? Is it marketing guys who drive the car and say, I'm feeling that I'm having a Polo moment, or is it a little bit more scientific than that?
Look, I think you're pretty close. The way I see it, there have always been almost two groupings of names. You get, let's call it the logical grouping, and they sort of alphanumeric. And you're talking brands like Audi, BMW, Mercedes,
right,
etc. And I think we can all work out what those are. There's often some reference to size, be it an A or a B or a C, and then there's a reference to engine size, which unfortunately these days is more leaning towards power because as engines have gone turbos, that engine size has got a bit muddled as well. But then you get the other ones, which is naming, and quite frankly, that's when marketing departments have got involved, and they've had a look and said, well, we're about to launch this car. We believe it wants to fit into this segment in the market, possibly these countries, appeal to this buyer, and let's come up with a name that's going to appeal. And they sit down and have a bit of a brainstorm, and I think they try and come up then with something that they believe matches with what the car is going to be.
So in terms of names, I mean, have there been some great successes and spectacular failures, or is my question based on a misunderstanding that people who buy the cars could actually care one way or another?
My guess from most people, I think some of them probably work pretty well. If I look at the American muscle cars, you've got names like Mustang and Charger, Viper,
yes,
Cobra, those sort of things, Thunderbird. I think, they're pretty clear. They probably turn the owners on a bit as well. I'm buying for power, and the name sort of signifies that to me, and I think those ones are quite obvious. Then you've got some other ones which are really a little bit different. The ones you mentioned, I must get to VW. You mentioned Polo, etc. VW have gone through a whole series of naming cars after wins.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you were aware of that.
No,
but,
tell us.
A lot of those names, Bora, Passat, even Polo and Golf are all named after wins. Polo and Golf are not named after the sports. They're short for the Polar Wind and I think the Gulf Wind, Gulfstream. And so they decided on a whole family of names related to winds. So the failures, I'm afraid, are generally, I think, when a name is translated into another language and the marketing people don't do their homework to make sure it's compatible with languages in all countries where it's going to be sold. And there's some quite ugly ones. I mean, Pajero was one. They had to change the name to Montero in South America because, quite frankly, I can't really tell you on a family station what Pajero stands for.
Okay. Well, I could do a beep. If you'd given it to me in advance, we could have timed it. So as you were about to say it, I would have gone beep, but too late.
Look, I guess some of your listeners can go and sort of Google this one and they'll have a good laugh. But I think a current car, the Kona, for instance, in Portugal has had to be renamed just for one country. It works in Spain as Kona, K-O-N-A, but it is renamed as Kauai in Portugal for, again, some reasons I can't go into. One that's maybe a little easier is Nova, with a Chevy. I think even there might have been an Opel, but that literally means no-go in Spanish. So that was a fairly clean one, but the other two I can't really repeat. So yes, those are the failures, and I think there are a couple of others where people have used names to find out that they were trademarked by the manufacturers too, names or naming. But those are probably classed as the failures.
Is there a possibility that, and I mean, all of us, I'm sure, in one way or another, have had marketing moments where we've got so taken up with our cleverness that other people have said, well, that's a cool name, I like the car, it gives me good mileage, and I'm delighted with the color, but I've absolutely no idea what the name means. I mean, I've looked up Yaris here, for example. It's and this is just on something called Autoblog. It says it's an amalgamation of words from Greek mythology and German. In Greek mythology, charis was a symbol of beauty and elegance. They swapped the CH with the Y. Does that make the blindest bit of difference? No disrespect, by the way, to the manufacturer or the car, but could that effort have been spared and just called it something more obvious?
Look, quite frankly, yes. I think the Japanese have come up with some really interesting ones in their day. I mean, in my early days, I used to work for Datsun and Nissan, and we had to contend with names like Cedric and Sylvia.
Cedric.
And that was very much for the Japanese domestic market. I think they wanted to get into export markets and came up with a name and then realized that they just didn't sound that good. So then they ended up changing to alphanumeric and called them things like 260Cs, and Sylvia's became 200SXs and things like that. So, they tried to realize their mistake and then kind of went backwards. But I don't think it really matters. My own view is, as long as it's a reasonably attractive sounding name, I don't think too many owners get too hung up on what it really might mean or not. I doubt whether too many people, I didn't know what Yaris meant, and I don't think too many people did either. It just sounds reasonably attractive. I guess it's okay.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks. Really interesting conversation. We'll pick up on that again at some other point, a different angle, but enjoyed talking to Graham Eagle, motoring expert in engineering, marketing and product planning.
News.
Experts.
Analysis.
Where things stand.
What you need to know. Drive home with John Perlman
On 702.